Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be looking at update 1.26, which will be coming to the live server in a matter of weeks, and it is looking like it is the biggest patch in World of Tanks history. But if not that, it's definitely the biggest patch in very many years. We have things to look forward to, like brand new light tanks with autocannon mechanics, including the Tesak, the tier 10 Czechoslovakian light tank. This looks like an enigma. We're going to be looking at this today. There's going to be the new crew perk system, vehicle rebalancing, including to your favorite tanks like the Batchat, M48, and K91. I'm going to be talking about new random events, reworking some of the fundamental maps that have been around since the beginning of the game, a new season of Onslaught, consumable update. They're massively revamping the way the consumables work. There's a WoT Plus update. There's a new battle pass. And I'm going to be pitching in today to let you know whether I think that just because it's the biggest patch, does that mean it's going to be the best patch and worth dipping back into World of Tanks this summer? So firstly, let's talk about Czechoslovakian light tanks. They are going to start from the Škoda T25, and you're going to have to save yourself 50,750 experience in this very good tier 6 Czechoslovakian medium to be able to play the Škoda T17 on day one. And it looks like you're going to have auto cannon, or should I say auto loader mechanics right from tier 7. This one does 100 average damage with 5 shells in the magazine, so it kind of just looks like it's just a bigger version of the 75mm on the previous vehicle. Ooh, so nothing too special there, but maybe the Blesk. Okay, this is where you're going to get the auto cannon mechanic. So 210 damage per second, 6, 4, or 12 average damage, 163 down to 37mm of HE pen, and a new measurement called rate of continuous fire. Now, I'm not going to go into this in great detail today. I just wanted to highlight that new Czech light tanks are coming. And please stay tuned and subscribe to the channel if you want to know my full opinion on these 4 vehicles, as well as also a full tank review of the upcoming Tesak, which means Fang in Czech, and all of its capabilities. With a tank that looks like, if it's able to penetrate HE rounds, is going to be capable of the new highest damage per minute in World of Tanks of over 5,000. So next up on the agenda, the new crew perk system. And this is looking like it's going into the game pretty much how it was previously. I made a video of this back in May where I talked about how I thought that it was going to affect the game. And since then, pretty much nothing has changed. And so I thoroughly recommend checking out that video if you want to know everything that will be happening with Crew 2.0. The short version of that video is that each crew member will be able to pick up to 6 skills maximum. There are a whole host of new skills in the game that you'll have to try and figure out which ones you want to use for your specific tanks. But the best feature is that there are bonus perks available for crew members that have multiple roles. So if you manage to get all 6 skills, that's going to allow you to pick 3 skills on your commander as a radio operator, which means that multi-skilled crew members are not going to struggle in other tanks. What it also means, for example, is you could take your commander who's not a radio operator on the Centurion Action 10, and if you were to put him in something like a G-Saw, for example, that allows you to actually give him secondary role skills, such as situational awareness, which you can train up, and that won't affect how he performs on your Centurion Action 10. So that alone is a fantastic change. And my final opinion on Crew 2.0 is that Wargaming delayed it for long enough to put it into a position where it's not going to destroy the game. It's definitely going to change it. For some people, change is scary. For other people, they see it as evolution. I don't think this is a flat-out improvement to World of Tanks, but I feel confident enough that while it will change the meta, it's not going to destroy the game. Every single crew you have will get 1 free reset, which is indefinite, so you don't have to log in immediately to World of Tanks to try and make use of their 30-day free reset window. But if you do, when this patch hits, most likely in late August or early September, I would thoroughly recommend logging in and redoing as many of your crews as you can as you go along to get them into the best position possible. Next up, let's talk about comprehensive vehicle rebalancing. 3 branches that they're starting from the bottom and working their way towards the top. So for the Batchat, that's the AMX ELC BIS, all the way up to the tier 10 French original assassin. For the M48, it's going to be starting at the Sherman and working its way up, and the K91 it's going to start at the T34 and work its way up. So let's start by talking about the French light tanks. So the AMX-12T is getting an accuracy buff, an aim time buff, a penetration buff, and it's getting more shells. That's fantastic. One of the worst aspects of that tank was running out of ammunition. Also an engine power buff. Great news for a great tank. For the 1375, accuracy, aim time, penetration, amount of shells it can carry, and engine just like its predecessor. For the ELC AMX, it's saying the 75mm gun for the turret has been removed. This is the SA32L gun, so I guess that's just the stock gun. So I guess you're going to get the stock gun right from the get-go. And for that 75mm, which remember gives that vehicle a fully traversable turret, they're also buffing the accuracy and the aim time. That's bizarre because that's the gun that I was using on that tank, and I think it was the better one if you were willing to fire a bit more gold. The Tier 8 light tank is getting improved dispersion on gun traverse. It's getting a reload buff. For both of the guns on the vehicle, it's getting an aim time buff of 0.3 seconds. It's getting a penetration buff, and it's also getting an engine power increase. So great news for the Bat Chatillon 12T. For the Tier 9 medium tank, which I always thought was a fun vehicle, but never really good enough to justify playing, it's getting an accuracy buff, massively increased gun traverse dispersion of 29%. Its aim time is also being massively increased. And when I say increased, I mean improved. From 2.5 to 2.1 on that enhanced gun. It looks like it's carrying more ammunition. But interestingly enough, it looks like the engines are going to get more expensive. So if you can buy them now, do so. And now let's talk about the Tier 10, the Bat Chatillon 25T. So immediately they're removing the 90mm and the 100mm from the Bat Chat. That's something from its archaic past, where in theory you could have got the Tier 10 Bat Chat without researching the guns. So all of those memes of Bat Chat drivers using the 90 or the 100 are going to be gone. So first up, they're improving the dispersion when moving and turning the tank by 18%. That's huge. They're also improving the accuracy from 0.38 to 0.35. That's massive. They're also reducing the gun traverse dispersion by 38%. That's the equivalent of 2 vertical stabilizers. They're also reducing the bloom after firing by 25%. That's ridiculous. The aim time from 2.7 to 2.4, and they're giving it 50 rounds of ammunition. Man, does that seem like a huge buff. I have to go and take a look to see how the Bat Chat has been performing recently. So where's the Bat Chat with regards to win ratio? It's not that low down on the list. It's not great, but it's not absolutely horrendous. This is a mega buff to this tank. I expect it's going to go at least to the top half, if not to the top of being an effective vehicle. However, personally for me, I would have really liked to have seen Wargaming increase its depression a little bit, and that's why the Charles 75 at Tier 9 just feels so amazing, because of that 7.5 degrees of gun depression, which unfortunately the Bat Chat's still going to have to suffer at 6. All in all, this is a massive buff to a vehicle which was tactical but never really just overpowered or meta, and this tank is definitely going to be very powerful, and it will be very meta next patch. Next, let's talk about the M48 and all of its predecessors. The M40A1 Sherman is getting a reload buff by half a second. Wow. With hull traverse, gun traverse, all of those dispersions are going to be buffed as well. But wait a minute, 1 second. I see that they are removing the 105mm, or at least they're saying the 105mm M4 for the D51066 turret has been removed. Does that mean that you're going to be able to use that gun with the stock turret? Wow, that's interesting. So they're changing the position of where the gun was. Previously, it was you could use the gun with the stock turret, but now to be able to use that 105mm gun, you're going to have to do it with the upgraded turret. So they're not removing it, but they're just making it harder to play that tank stock. Now let's look at the Easy 8. They're improving the accuracy of the tank. They're reducing the dispersion on gun traverse. They're also massively improving the rate of fire by 0.7. That's a ridiculous 20% damage per minute increase. They're improving the aim time. They're improving the view range on the stock turret, and they're changing the hit points from 892 down to 890. Okay, a rounding error, I guess. The T20 is practically getting no changes apart from formalities to the way the modules work. And interestingly enough, even though they're buffing the Easy 8, it doesn't look like they're actually buffing the premium version of that tank apart from a minor penetration increase. So Wargaming wanting those two vehicles to be different now, I guess. The Pershing is getting some tremendous love by the looks of it for the 90mm gun, with dispersion improving when moving by 15%, accuracy by 0.02. The rate of fire is going to be 7.6 seconds from 6.8. I think that's probably an issue that Wargaming have. No, it's an issue that I have. I did not see that they're actually improving the alpha damage of this gun. But I don't see that mentioned anywhere in the patch notes. See, I was confused. I thought that must be a typo when they say they're changing the reload from 6.8 to 7.6 because that doesn't seem like a buff. But actually, the Pershing is now going to hit for 280 damage. Wow, absolutely massive buff to a tank which will always have a special place in my heart from when I was playing it back in the day. Well, let's see what they're doing to the tier 9 as well. Accuracy buff from 0.4 to 0.37. Aim time buff, and also it looks like a rate of fire buff by 0.04 seconds. That means that the pattern is going to be terrifying with regards to its damage per minute. 2,600 DPM. Man, that thing is already a very fun and great damage dealer. It's going to be even better next patch. Well, they've got me very interested to know what they're doing to my most played tank in the game, which is the M48A5 pattern. Okay, they're giving it a slight accuracy buff from 0.36 to 0.35, an aim time buff from 1.9 to 1.8, and they're also improving the top speed by 3 kilometers an hour. A nice buff to a tank which was already in a good position, and next patch it will be in a much better one at that. However, I have to admit, after reading that Bat Chat buff, I was kind of expecting the M48 to get a little bit more love, but maybe I'm a little bit biased. Alright, let's take a look to see what they're doing to the Soviet tanks. Okay, so for the T-34, all they're doing is buffing the 76mm gun a little bit. It's still going to be much worse than using the 57mm on that tank. For the A43, it looks like it's getting accuracy, aim time, and velocity buffs and penetration buffs. Lovely. For the A44, which is famous for its 107mm, it's getting an accuracy buff, an aim time buff, and it's also getting more gun depression. Wow, that is going to be a big old buff to that tier 7 medium. Okay, what's happening to the Object 416? I just featured this on a YouTube video the other day and said that it was a fabulous tank, and oh my lord, look at what Wargaming are doing. An accuracy buff, an insane rate of fire buff from 8 to 6.5, an aim time buff, a penetration buff on the standard rounds, and they're improving the gun depression as well. Are they mad? I thought that was an incredible vehicle already, and this gun... Oh, wait a minute, I might be trying to get ahead of myself here. Is it the stock gun that they're buffing? I think they're buffing the stock gun, boys and girls. Oh, okay. I was getting a little too excited there. Yeah, it's the D10 gun that's the stock one, and it's the M63 gun that's the upgraded gun. So the upgraded gun is getting a penetration buff, sure, but it's only the stock gun that Wargaming are buffing for both turrets that you use. So I think that's a good change. I thought the Object 416 was actually a really good performer, and so for Wargaming to make it not suck stock, that gets a thumbs up from me. Good change by Wargaming. Nevertheless, that gun depression buff on this tank is going to make it feel way more flexible on a ridgeline. So good news for the 416. Okay, let's take a look to see what they're doing to the Object 430 version 2. So it looks like it's getting an accuracy buff, a dispersion buff, a rate of fire buff as well, a significant rate of fire, an aim time buff, and they're also making it so it's a fully traversable turret for the first time. That will be massive for the tier 9 Soviet medium tank, as it's always a vehicle which struggled with its flexibility since they made the turret limited. Now it's going to be able to, for example, put its gun completely sideways and poke out round a corner and expose very little of the rear of the tank. And I can only imagine how good that gun is going to perform. 2,783 damage per minute with 330 heat pen at tier 9. Wow, that thing's going to be a vicious sniper. So ladies and gents, boys and girls, without further ado, let's take a look to see what they're doing to the K91. Wow. Pretty big buff here. They're changing the reload time from 6.3 seconds to a base 5.7, and they're also giving it a fully traversable turret. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, say hello to the new highest damage per minute medium tank in the game. I honestly think Wargaming are going too far with this. I think this is actually a very good tank if you are a good player. I currently am packing 66% win rate solo in my K91 with respectable combines per game. And so I can only imagine what I'm going to be able to do with that kind of a crazy rate of fire. And remember, this vehicle is a sniper medium, so it also gets a rate of fire buff from the field mods. Wow, with standard equipment, I'm packing 4,408 damage per minute. One of the bizarre things about this tank is it actually gets 9 degrees of gun depression over the side. So I wonder if Wargaming are going to give it 9 degrees of gun depression all over the back of the tank. This thing could be phenomenal if you also include the fact that it has over 40% camo while it's moving. So all in all, some massive buffs to some of your favorite vehicles, or vehicles that maybe you haven't even looked at and are going to be very meta very soon. So now let's talk about random events. I personally have random events turned off because I feel like it messes up the map rotation for me, but you're going to be able to see random events on Pilsen, Malinovka, and also Karelia. There's going to be a plane crash on Malinovka, there's going to be a rock slide on Karelia, and there's going to be a destruction of the central plant on Pilsen, which will allow you to be able to push through either sides of the flank, and they're also going to be moving trains on Pilsen as well, which will help you to be able to get into the battle. Next, let's talk about the map reworking, and personally for me, I don't really like this change. Previously, this is what it was like. You could make your way along here if you were a skilled player from the south. Well, you don't even really have to be skilled. You could just, sorry, I've got the wrong side. You could basically water walk your way along here, and then you could go here, and it was a way to be able to flank and get that position. I think the map was perfectly fine, and Wargaming are changing it now, so this whole area will just be maybe a camp-off or maybe a progression fight for either of the two teams. It doesn't look like they're really changing this position, so I still think that the team that spawns over towards the west or the left of this map is still going to just sit here, and I feel like they'll have even better defensive positions. And at least the enemy team now won't have to know how to wiggle on the ridge line that was previously here to be able to make their way across. They'll be able to just go over there and flow the battle. Honestly, I don't think this map needed reworking. I think the problem with this map is usually people camping inside the base, and it doesn't look like they've done anything to do that. It also looks like they're adding to the middle of the map here. They're making it so that there's more cover to allow players to avoid getting shot in the center. What they will also all do is it will allow the team that spawns over here to be able to get in behind this position and avoid the shots that come over from this side of the map. Well, Wargaming are actually addressing the defensive positions. They're getting rid of the dragon's teeth, and there also looks like they're getting rid of one of the trees that provided cover for the team. So that's going to be a much harder position to try and defend, to stop people from pushing towards this area of the map. But really, the issues that I found on here were people camping up in this corner or people just using the defensive positions along here. Honestly, this isn't a map that I had a problem with. I think it was a nice map. Well, it looks like Wargaming might be addressing that A0 location where the bushes have been moved to be close to the red line, making it easier to spot players in that position. Interesting. We'll have to just see how that map works out next patch. Wargaming are also changing Oyster Bay. This is how the map was before, and this is how it's going to be after. So clearly they want to have more defensive positions towards the center to allow people to push up, which was an underutilized scenario. Also, there's going to be a cave that people can go through. And wow, this cave connection means that you're going to be able to transition from those alleyways, which means they're going to be a lot less campy. Pretty cool. And it's a way to be able to escape and also to be able to flank your opponents. So I think that'll make that area of the map a lot more dynamic. What are they doing to the shoreline? Wow, look at that. They're actually raising that whole section there, I guess, to be able to try and give some cover and allow people to progress through. Previously, this map was just about who could really rush to this outside location while also getting some of the positions along the inside. It looks like they're now making a lot more cover to allow people to be a little bit safer from the long range. That's a big nerf to tank destroyers. I'm not sure if tank destroyers really need a nerf. Outpost looks like it's been significantly changed. They're raising up this position by the looks of it to make it so that players can't manage to camp in there. It also looks like they might be raising this location to try and stop people from camping in there. And they're also allowing like positions in here to maybe create some more hold down positions to cross. They're also adding 2 buildings in the center to make it so that people who sit up here and sit up here don't have such easy shots across. And I guess it'll just mean there's more of a brawl going on in the middle. Again, I don't really feel like this was a map that had too much of a problem there, but I see that Wargaming are adjusting things. Also, highlight this building here, which has just appeared, as you can see. That means that that position is going to be a lot safer from the edge there, and maybe people will be able to use the higher position as well. Oh, yeah, there you can see the building. It also means that players in the middle are no longer going to be able to shoot players who are here, And I think that's a good change, because previously this position, you couldn't really use it because people in the center would be able to get shots across. Wow, Wargaming are making a big change to Lakeville, and I think this is a good change as well. They're just removing the trees and the bushes here. And while that means that this clever position for tank destroyers is now going to be, you're going to be much worse off with it, I do think that was a good change, because the amount of STRVs that I've played against recently who were just sitting there and just stopping any kind of progression through the valley was a bit too hindering. Wargaming are also adjusting the terrain adjustment on Stajunki. On steps, Wargaming are adjusting the heavy tank route to make it more balanced. They're removing bushes in squares E1 and J2. There's a new position to use in H3. Again, this is all pretty useless unless Wargaming provide actual photos of it. They're adjusting one line of fire on Tundra, and they're also removing some of the bushes on Abbey. Okay, next up, let's talk about Onslaught Season of the Azure Manticore. It always seems a little bit weird to me that they'll... obviously, the Manticore is a mythical beast, right? And that's what they name the Onslaught Seasons after. But it does seem a little bit weird to me when they name it after a tank that's already inside the game. So let's take a look to see what we have to look forward to in Onslaught. Firstly, the special tank that you're going to be able to get is the T-57. And Wargaming have clarified that you can use these special tanks, such as the Hurricane from the first season, inside subsequent seasons of Onslaught, which provide you a little bit of an advantage with crew training. This tank is going to be called the Stinger, and yeah, we'll just have to wait to see what it's going to look like. So Wargaming are making it easier to be able to progress through the Iron, the Bronze, and the Silver rank, so it'll be easier for you to be able to get towards gold, which you have to do in all 3 seasons minimum if you want to be able to get the T-57 Heavy Stinger. Wargaming are adjusting the Assault Tank Destroyer roll skill significantly. The roll now reduces your incoming damage received by up to 30%. It increases your top speed by 10 forwards, 10 backwards, engine power by 35%. It also means that you will ram your opponents for 30% extra damage. However, as a downside, when your roll skill is active, your tracks will be destroyed by a single shot. So interesting there. So I can only imagine how much ramming damage people are going to do with the Object 268 version 4. Or maybe even a Jagdpanzer E100, which weighs 135 tons and with that ability is going to be able to reach 46 kilometers an hour if you are using a Bond turbo. In addition to this, Wargaming are changing the way the recon flight roll skill works. Now it is only going to be available 3 seconds after the battle starts. That's a huge nerf to light tanks, but it does also mean that there'll be more surprises that you can be able to inflict on your opponents, as you're not going to get spotted quite so quickly, and so fast tanks will be able to avoid being spotted at the start of the battle. I personally think that's a poor change. I really enjoyed the recon flight skill. There was also a reasonable amount of micro skill in being able to land it correctly at the start, but I like the fact that they're adding a special icon to display for when a player has been detected by the skill, so you'll know roughly when to overlap it. Next, they're changing the modifiers. Previously, vehicle durability was increased by a flat 25%. Now it is going to be just a flat 65% amount. Sorry, 650 hit points. This will be a really big change for example, the mouse. If the mouse had 3,000 base hit points, it was getting 750 extra HP. Whereas, you know, if a T100 LT has 1,500 hit points, that was only getting 375 HP. Now, the flat bonus will be 650, meaning that light tanks will be getting a buff, and some of the bigger, heavier tanks in the game are going to be not benefiting so much. Also, the amount of time that you're visible is going to be changed from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. Wargaming are doing this for a specific reason, and that is because there's going to be a crew skill in the game called jamming. And what jamming does is it decreases the time that your vehicle remains spotted by 1 second. And so Wargaming aren't changing that because they felt like it was too long. They're changing that because they realized that sweaty players who have all of the crew skills would have been able to get to a point where they were no longer spotted when they were also using a radio on the tank. So you're still only going to be spotted for a second. It's just going to mean that you're going to have a specific radio skill, and you're also going to have the radio piece of equipment. So Wargaming are also adding new modifiers. Firstly, they're reducing RNG from 25% down to plus or minus 12%. They're also making it so that your inner module damage reduction is 50%, and they're also reducing the chance that your engine gets set on fire completely. So fuel tank fires will still happen. It's very important that you still repair your fuel tanks. But Wargaming, in my opinion, are just making this game feel more and more like a MOBA and less like the random queue. They've clarified that new vehicles will be available in Onslaught, all of the reward vehicles, including the 268 version 5, the Monkey King, the 113. This is very interesting, because now that you'll be able to play the M60 and the Foch 155 and the 268 version 5, those are specific tanks that aren't clones of vehicles that we already have in the game. And so they do provide new opportunities for gameplay. And while I'm not suggesting the 268 version 5, the Foch 155 or the M60 are going to be the new meta inside Onslaught, the fact that those are tanks that allow you to play differently to how players could play inside the tech tree, it's kind of skirting in the possibility of pay to win if we see some of the other reward vehicles going into the game as well. But I guess Wargaming feel that considering these ones are available for everyone inside the Bond store, that's where hopefully the line is going to be drawn. Next up, really big news, not just for Onslaught, but also for the random queue, and that is that Wargaming will be putting in the Bond exhaust into the game. I personally think that I just don't really think that we need to have camouflage getting more extreme than it already is. And while it's not available in the client on side the server, I can't imagine that it's going to be any less than Bounty, which is already 9%. I do expect that the Bond exhaust will improve your camo by 10% while moving on a light tank. And I think that's outrageous. We already have tanks like the Manticore reaching 53+% camo while moving. And that's without assigning all of the newfangled skills. There might be some way to be able to improve that way. That 1% difference just from going and spending bonds inside a game mode that some people don't want to play, they're only interested in the random queue, means that more and more of the really sneaky tanks in the game are going to get even more so. A passing mention should be made to Muravanka and Live Oaks being new for Onslaught and Himmelsdorf making a return, and rental vehicles that you're going to be able to play are the E50M, the 277 and the 113. Okay, back to the random queue now. Consumable update. This one is massive. It's come out of nowhere, and it's amazing to me that this is going straight to the test server instead of reaching some kind of a sandbox test server. Firstly, Wargaming are apparently unifying and upgrading small and large first aid and repair kits in the next update. This means that small repair kits in World of Tanks in the next update are going to repair all of your modules. Large repair kits are going to do exactly the same thing. They will still provide a module repair speed bonus to it, but instead of having a 90-second cooldown, large repair kits are going to have a 60-second cooldown. The cost of these kits are going to remain the same, with the large kits costing 20,000 and the base cost of the small kits costing 3,000. So I have a lot of thoughts about this. Firstly, why do we need the time to reuse a repair kit going down so much? I don't know about all of you, but for me personally, I think that we've come so far from what this game used to be like back in the day, where repair kits were only usable once per battle. Then repair kits were usable once every 90 seconds. Now, if you can pay the 10,000 credits per game at a discount, 20,000 outside of a discount, it's 60 seconds. And that's excluding crew skills, where you are going to be able to further reduce this consumable repair time by 10%. And so that means that with that, your actual repair time is going to go down to about 53 seconds, considering that the crew skill is going to be buffed depending on what your raw qualification skill is. And so a 53-second large repair kit time. And let's not forget in Onslaught that repair kits are usable even faster. At what stage does it have to get to where module damage doesn't matter and that players don't have to play as if their tracks are a risk? I personally feel that Wargaming are taking more and more out of the planned engagements and maybe having to wait for your repair kit to come back before you make that push. And this wouldn't really be so much of a problem if we didn't have modules in the game and overpowered field mods in the game, which basically make it so that tanks can't be tracked in the first place, such as a durability device increasing suspension durability, or the most weird field mod in the game, the first one for tank destroyers, which pretty much everyone has to take unless you're an idiot, the suspension durability because it also improves your ground resistances as well, which negates the hull traverse. What this means is that a Jagdpanzer 100 with standard equipment can get 114% track durability increase, and now that if you use a large repair kit as well, you're going to be able to get the repair time of those tracks down to like 53 seconds inside the random queue. So all in all, small kits and small med kits are going to be better. There's no doubt about that. But the amount of pay to win from the large kits is only going to increase as the disparity of the time becomes a new reality. In addition to this, Wargaming are unifying quality and excellent fuel. It's going to be one consumable that I believe is used for every single nation. So every single nation is going to have access to excellent fuel and quality fuel. Excellent fuel, which costs you 20,000 a battle. Quality fuel will cost you 5,000 a battle. I don't think you're going to be able to use both of them at the same time, but this is a massive change, as I believe that some vehicles previously couldn't use fuel, and for example, with Soviet and I believe Chinese vehicles, those tanks used speed governors before. And so I'm wondering what happens to my IS-7 now. Wow, they've actually just straight up removed the speed governor? So you're telling me instead of like only damaging my engine through the battle, now I'm going to have to pay 10,000 at discount, 20,000 at full price per game? Wow, that is an expensive way to play World of Tanks. Also, that means that now, previously with the speed governor, you weren't having better turret traverse, but now you are going to have better turret traverse. That's a pretty wild change, if of course you can afford to be spending so many credits per battle. This undoubtedly makes this game more pay to win. Speed governors were one of the most awesome free-to-play modules that have been in the game since the very beginning. They were a skill-based module where you had to turn them on when you needed them, turn them off when you don't need them. They were dirt cheap, cost 3,000 credits, and they didn't get used up in each one of your battles. So it was undoubtedly one of the most free-to-play ways to set up your vehicle and customize it for a little bit of extra speed. I personally think that Wargaming, they should just leave speed governors in the game, make them a dangerous module to use, and allow people to pay to win with the excellent fuel if they want to spend 10 or 20,000 credits per battle, or allow them to take the risk of damaging their engine with the speed governors to save some credits. But the more time that Wargaming make this game more expensive to play, requiring you to spend more credits to play your vehicle in the optimal way, while removing ways for free-to-play players to be able to also gain those advantages as well, the worse this game gets. So Wargaming, I would really ask you, please keep speed governors in the game. Make them available for every single nation. If you feel like they're too strong, then give them another penalty in another way, or maybe make it so that they also damage your ammo rack as well or something. Wargaming say, we're sure that all these changes will make consumables more user-friendly, enabling you to perform more effectively. What they're really trying to say here is that they're going to make it more expensive to play the game, and of course you're going to be able to perform more effectively with just flat out buffs if you're willing to pony up the credits. Next up, there's a WoT Plus update, and that is that if you have WoT Plus subscription, you are going to be able to see new information, equipment assistance, which reveals the most commonly used equipment on specific vehicles. Well, here's a little bit of a tip. You don't need to pay for WoT Plus to be able to get that. You could just go onto Tomato GG, you can click a vehicle, you can go to loadouts, and it shows you all of the different equipment that different levels of players are using. So absolutely no need to pay for WoT Plus to have that information available for you inside the game. Just go onto the awesome Tomato GG website and you'll see what everyone's using. Or alternatively, I do have a variety of tank reviews on this channel which do give equipment recommendations with chapter links so you can jump straight to them. And finally, Wargaming highlight about Battle Pass Season 15, which is going to be last until the end of November, where you can be able to get more tokens, you can get more points, and let me clarify once again, your tokens from this current season, the one that ends in September, don't run out. They will roll over into the final Battle Pass season, and then you will be able to get your maximum amount of tokens, buy whatever tanks you want, and you must spend your tokens before the end of November where they disappear. However, let me clarify, you have to spend your points before next month, otherwise those will disappear. The points that you only have access to spend once you've completed all of the 3 chapters. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was possibly the biggest patch in World of Tanks history. Fundamental changes to so many aspects of the game. crew skills, the way that the maps play, a whole new line of Czech auto-loading light tanks, a massive change to Onslaught, and even one of the very fundamentals of the game, Consumables, is massively being revamped. I hope all of you enjoyed this breakdown today. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And please let me know in the comments down below what you think about all of these changes. Do you think these look like an evolution of World of Tanks, as Wargaming are very much trying to say it is, rather than calling it another Crew 2.0? Or do you think the majority of these changes aren't interesting and they're not enough to keep you playing or to even get you back into the game? Talk about getting back into the game. I'm going to be getting back into it today, live on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby, with some brand new tokens available today at 3 o'clock Central, UTC, not Central European time. And come along today, as I'm undoubtedly going to be playing the Czechoslovakian light tanks for the very first time, as well as also the UDES 3 Alt 3 on my main account for the very first time. And if I have enough of time, that is, I'll be playing some pole tanks as well. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with those brand new tokens. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.